Gentleman, Mr. Garrett.
And I thank you. I guess I'll go to Mr. Williams, and I'm going to get down a totally different road, although it's tangentially related. It's related to the issue of what we've heard before with regard to legal fees and the payments and the like. It goes to the issue of when Fannie purchases loans originating in the names of persons other than its seller, and specifically taking a look at the situation with various credit unions, specifically Picatinny Federal Credit Union. And if you're familiar with this situation, that's where there's legal action pending where Picatinny Federal Credit Union has 52 loans with a total outstanding balance of around $13 million that were sold to Fannie without Picatinny's knowledge or authorization. To date, my understanding is Fannie has not offered Picatinny more than basically in a settlement discussions 23 cents on a dollar in settlement, and even that offer I understand had a number of conditions attached to it. So I'm going to have a couple of questions here on this. First is that a meaningful settlement from your perspective? And secondly, can you tell me how much it is costing, we should say us, or Fannie, what it's costing to continue with the settlement negotiations, the investigation, and defending the claims brought by them and the other credit unions in this matter? Let me just stop there and go on.
Thank you, Congressman.
Sure.
As you know, this was a fraud that was brought upon both Fannie Mae and the credit unions, and I'd like to ask Mr. Myopoulos to discuss the nature of the settlement, please.
Sure.
Congressman, as Mr. Williams has indicated, this is a fraud that was perpetrated on both the credit unions and on Fannie Mae. And basically, the question in the litigation is, who bears that loss? Is it the credit union that originally bought the mortgages and sold them to Fannie Mae, or is it Fannie Mae? There were, my recollection, I don't remember precisely, my recollection is about 24 credit unions who had a similar set of issues, all victims of the same fraud. And we have reached settlements with the vast majority of them. There are a handful, including Picatinny, with whom we have not reached settlements. We have sought to do that, and the terms on which we have sought to reach a settlement with Picatinny are essentially the same as they are with the other credit unions, and the vast majority of the other credit unions have accepted that settlement.
Yeah. Do you have an answer, though? I appreciate that. Do you have numbers at your fingertips with regard to what it's actually costing us with regard to defending the claim, all the investigations and all that goes on, at least with regard to this credit union or all the credit unions out there?
I'm sorry, Congressman, I don't have those numbers at my fingertips. We can work
provide
to get those for you.
That'd be great. And also along the same lines, you know, I used to be with law firms and always thought that small ones were better than the big guys. And I know we were certainly cheaper than the big guys. The Picatinny has hired one of those smaller ones, nothing connected with me, I should say that. Fannie Mae has retained, I guess, Latham and Watkins, I guess one of the bigger guys in the entire country. Can you also, you probably don't have it at your fingertips, just provide us also at the same time what's that costing us, the rates and the billing and the proceedings on that? What we're dealing with, and I appreciate you both making the same comment. You started out with your comment that this is basically a fraud, not just on the GSEs, on Fannie. This is also a fraud that was engaged against the credit unions as well, Picatinny, right? Yeah, I appreciate that. Because basically what you have here is when I could basically come to the Fannie and say, I want to sell some loans and to them, and Fannie buys them, and the owner of them doesn't know a thing about it. Is really what we're talking about here, correct? And that's where the fraud is engaged.
Yes, my understanding of the fraud here was that the person who sold these loans from the credit unions to Fannie Mae appeared to have authority to do that, and the law firms, I'm sorry, the credit unions now say that no, that person didn't have the authority. So the question is, who bears that risk? And
right, and so I only have 45 seconds left. What is done as far as from Fannie's perspective in order to see whether that individual, me in that situation, that hypothetical, had the authority to do it? You notify the borrowers at some point in line that Fannie holds these loans at this point in time, right? So do you also notify would you have also notified the seller? Which case would it be the credit unions at the same time? So what steps are taken to make sure that they are really the rightful owners, and do you notify them when they're secured at the same time?
We don't typically notify sellers of loans that they've sold loans to us. I mean, in this case, the person in question actually appeared to have apparent authority to do that, and in fact, if I recall the facts correctly, had in fact been authorized to sell some loans on behalf of Picatinny. So this is a person that Picatinny brought to the situation, gave authority to at least sell at least some loans, and then apparently this person sold loans beyond what he had authority to sell.
And just the last question of the chair. Will you continue to, in the hearing it said that it was understood that you continue to purchase loans from sellers who the principal owners are subject to criminal indictment or mortgage fraud until the fraud has been judicially determined or discovered to have been committed upon Fannie Mae. Basically, you will or have continued to purchase loans from people even though they're indicted and there's fraud allegations against them, even until that is actually adjudicated in the court. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that, Congressman.
Okay, then if that would be one of the other points, if you can get back to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate the indulgence of the chair.